Thanks for coming in today. So tell me, why do you want to start the podcast?
I guess it's because I have something to say about movies and TV series.
So your Let's Fix videos, aren't they the same thing?
No, well, maybe.
Isn't that just undermining what you said about if something doesn't need to be made, then it shouldn't be made?
I meant that more in a metaphorical sense. Like if something could end with a nice bow, wouldn't you just want it to end instead of dragging it along without a clear end in sight? Or you're just gonna drag it out as long as it's bringing in money?
And that couldn't have been said on your YouTube channel.
I guess in terms of my YouTube, I still have some stories to tell. And just because I'm leaving commentary doesn't mean I'm done with YouTube. It's just gonna be a little different. And I guess I'm trying something new.
Something new like this podcast?
Yeah, exactly. I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be a little different to everything else. Maybe it's gonna be a little same to my Let's Fix, but it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be different, don't you think?
So you just want to make something, even if it fails?
You think it's gonna fail?
I don't know. I'm just a voice in your head.
I guess so. You just seem really different to me sometimes.
I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes.
Hi, welcome to I started a podcast so you don't want to. Let's talk about what you need to start a podcast. There's a couple of things you're going to need to know before starting a podcast. One, what you're going to talk about. What's the reason for the podcast existing? Do you know the format that you're going to be presenting in? Is it going to be a multi-person, single person, digital, audio? How are you going to do the podcast? And 3, do you have the right equipment? You can't record this on a cell phone. It's just not going to look right. So you're going to need some equipment. This is going to go terribly, like everything else does. But we're going to have a little fun with it. So since the tender age of childhood, I was really into cinema. Not necessarily high cinema, just movie. So that is what we're going to make the podcast about. Let's make a podcast about movies and series, some YouTube filmmaking techniques, and just really good content. For that, we're going to need to use some equipment. So let's talk about it. You only need really one thing to make a great podcast. 1, something to record on. You can use your computer or you can use an external device like we are today. This is the Zoom H1N portable audio recorder. It is truly the best thing that I've bought for my entire YouTube setup. I use it for 90% of my videos and it's truly amazing. I decided I'll be using a co-host for when I do my podcast. You don't have to use a co-host. You can do it by yourself and do a Aaron Meinkes from our Cabinet of Curiosities and Lore, but that is a lot of work. And it's a lot easier to record things when you have someone else to bounce off of. And for that reason, I'm going to be asking a bunch of friends whether or not they want to be part of my podcast and then see how that goes. Hey, do you want to move to South Africa to start a podcast with me?
Yeah, we're driving down the freeway at night. I only got one thing in the back of my mind. I'm feeling like this might be my time to shine with you, with you, with you. I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes. I got my head out the sunroof. Oh, 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 oh.
So this is Jason. We've been friends for a couple of years, and just recently we started to bond about our love of film. Being honest with you, he was the main reason I wanted to start this podcast. He's a really great guy, and he knows a lot about movies. So, I guess we found our co-host.
Yeah, we're driving down the freeway at night. I only got one thing in the back of my mind. I'm feeling like this might be my time to shine with you, with you, with you. I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes.
We here with Jason.
Hello.
Who's gonna be the co-host on my new podcast. We
have no idea what it's going to be called.
we have done no planning.
None.
Currently, I thought we were gonna do planning now, but like it's all past one, and we need to get going. So, Jason, what do you want to call this podcast?
You know what? We can do a little bit of interactivity here. We can see how we feel as time goes by. You know, maybe see if something sticks, something stands out to us as the first episode goes. Maybe the viewers can assist as well.
In the name.
Yeah.
So we're gonna upload a podcast without the name attached.
Well, we'll come with some bullshit at the end, I think. You know, SEO needs to be at least somewhat
decent.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll figure that out later down the line. So, I mean, let's talk about
the reason.
Yeah, the reason we're making this podcast. We both have very weird views on movies, especially.
I mean, is it weird?
I mean, it's very different
strong.
it's very different to what normal people enjoy watching, I suppose.
Yes.
We're not very into like the Marvel adaptations at the moment. But I feel like we are like a lot of other people that have been watching these movies for a long time, and we've experienced like the burnout. Podcast is gonna be just us talking about movies and music and things we like. The reason I chose Jay, firstly, because he's got like a really big wealth of knowledge on media.
Much appreciated. I like that.
Yeah, he's got like a really large knowledge base, and he's got an appreciation for things that I can't see. I focus more on like really technical and things that you shouldn't be pedantic about in film. Things like frame rates and like aperture and shit like that. When he can appreciate the shot for being a good shot, I will always have the idea on how the hell did they do that, and it's a good contrast to have me being on like a hyper technical side and Jason being on a more creative side, I suppose.
Yeah, more in how it's there to service the story it's trying to tell.
Yeah.
So it's like how do you use your technique? How is the techniques being used to convey the story?
Yeah.
You know, that's when you get the difference between like the choppy fight scenes that are very fast, quick cut and everything, and between the more long takes that showcase a lot more handiwork, because then that difference in technique already shows the difference in effort alone.
Yeah.
Because then you see the choreography, you see the practice, the stunts, all that gets put into focus more when you get different techniques, all that kind of thing. So I assume that links with this.
Yeah, we also don't have any like formal qualifications on filmmaking.
I'm blowing hot smoke 90% of the time I'm talking, so
so
we have fun.
Please don't take anything we say seriously. So let's talk about experience with movies. I've got 2 years making YouTube videos semi full time, or it's been more like hobby based than anything else. Beyond that, I do editing for other YouTubers, and I have quite a wide array of like technical ability. I did like a couple of short courses in like filmmaking and things like that, so I do know like story structure and things like that. It's not anything like I didn't go get like a diploma or anything like a bachelor's of arts, but I have enough qualifications that I've sort of become comfortable talking about filmmaking. And
You got fucking something.
what do you got, my guy?
In the veil of filmmaking,
Yeah.
fucking nothing, dude. I watch movies for fun.
I mean, you have a letterbox. You've been writing reviews for a while.
I mean, I don't actually physically write anything yet because it's mostly for a similar reason. You kind of what the reason for the podcast essentially is. It's kind of weird. It's hard to put into words, but also I just don't have the time.
Oh yeah. Also, this podcast is not going to be edited by either of us. I am going to find someone to do that. Fuck editing a podcast, my own videos, and someone else's YouTube videos. I will never ever have to close DaVinci Resolve again. So whoever's editing this, thank you, firstly. I do hope that we have the same editor all along, but well, you've been doing reviews for a while.
Well, yeah, I post like just the number, the letterbox stars, so to speak, which is just 5 out of 5, which is basically just out of 10. And yeah, been watching for a while, but mainly my taste has just been changed, and I'm just very hyper aware of it, and I'm just sort of acting on it in that sense, because I'm just like the stuff that's in the mainstream is just kind of very boring and one note. So I've been looking for stuff that's just a bit more interesting, more weird and wonderful, and you always get these changing of the gods and kind of thing where, you know, the old god dies and the new come in.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that with filmmaking. I mean, we even you low-key see it with Denis Villeneuve as well.
Yes.
He started off very, like, I watched one of his first ones, the Ensembles, which is so bleak and so dark and depressing, but it's so amazing. Just in general.
Yeah.
But now seeing that, and now he's doing Dune.
Yeah.
And before Dune, he did Blade Runner
Yeah.
as well. So he's been like, and now he's like a fairly common name, you know, and he came from very obscure places. So it's like, it's interesting to see that, because now it's like they're also bringing that kind of shift in tone. They're bringing that, okay, we're not just gonna do the 3-act structure of, you know.
Yeah, like the hero story. We're gonna do something different now.
We're gonna like kind of fuck with shit, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like we're in a good place now with filmmaking, where we can express these things, but it's that's sort of taking a backseat to major movies and like hyper popular things, and that is why this podcast is sort of the way it is. And with that, I think we should dive right into the podcast. I'm gonna link Jason's socials down below in this YouTube channel. And there's gonna be a link to the podcast. We don't have a name for it yet. We will figure it out eventually.
It'll be decided eventually.
Yeah.
Pick something.
And yeah, let's do this thing. There's just a little time lapse of myself and Jason just recording. But actually a really fun time. And let's get into talking about it now. So we just finished recording our podcast now. Jason, how did you Wait, no one can hear you from that far away.
Wait, the mic's over there, right. I've been alright, so I've been pretty good.
How do you...
We have a few things to iron out, but I mean, obviously that will be...
Yeah.
That is obvious for a first time situation. I have not done this before. I do not know what I'm doing.
But how do you feel about like talking to a microphone, knowing that like a bunch of people are gonna hear you and hear your opinions, and that you might need to filter yourself a little bit? Like, how is that?
I am indifferent because the filtering might not happen. I mean, sometimes. I mean, yeah, I don't really care. But I know, like, for them hearing things, like, they can listen.
Okay.
Like,
I mean,
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them hearing whatever they hear.
I mean,
I say.
So this is just like a 45-minute episode. I am probably going to be the one editing this because it's 45 minutes. I thought we were going to get a lot more out of it.
I mean, our circumstances for recording are not the most ideal. Obviously, It is hot.
Yeah, it's
The heat kind of makes things a bit.
it makes it like uncomfortable. Makes you a little bit grumpy when you're
A
recording.
little bit, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
little bit sweaty. But you know what?
Yeah, thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
um,
I'm actually on camera.
Yeah.
I was not even paying attention to the camera. Like,
just like looking at your phone.
no, I'm looking at the microphone.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm talking to the fucking microphone the whole time. You know, like I'm recording the podcast right now, and then there's a camera sitting there recording me the whole time.
Yeah,
So,
there's a camera. But yeah, thanks again for joining. We are gonna just relax a little bit for a little bit because, let's face it, filming does drain your social battery quite a lot. And yeah, you'll see me again like in a nanosecond when this cuts, but you won't see Jason again. So say goodbye, guys. So I'm back. It's been a couple of days since we recorded the podcast, and I'm actually about to start editing it now. I haven't listened to any of the footage. I do know that some of the recording parts were a little bit rough, and that it's not gonna turn out the best. There was a bunch of technical issues. Nerves were running really high after everything, and while we were recording, we were both kind of awkward just doing a podcast with another person because you obviously have to compensate for them. But all in all, I didn't find the experience terrible. I really enjoyed just sitting around talking about movies with a friend. That part was something I really enjoyed. There was a couple of things that we could have done to make it easier on ourselves. Things like having more extensive talking points, having done a little bit more research on the movies we are going to talk about. Maybe both of us being on the same page on a couple of things. But it's not deal breakers. It's not something that I would say scrap the podcast over. So we are going to go through what we made, basically, and then see, firstly, if it's usable, and secondly, what's going to happen once the editing is completed. I would just like to say a big thank you to Jason for being with me with the podcast and being a co-host. I really enjoyed working with him. He's a pretty cool dude. I have linked his socials down below, so you can always check it out if you want to. But without further ado, let's get into editing. So what happened was I imported the audio firstly into Audacity, and I was like, okay, that sounds good, let's do a noise reduction. Did that. I slapped it into Levelator, but when I moved it into DaVinci Resolve, I messed up because I listened to what the audio sounds like, and I sounded great. I sounded fantastic because I was sitting close to the mic and I was speaking into the microphone, and I didn't realize something, that Jason was really quiet. It's no fault in either of us, actually. It's more just the way we did it. I need to figure out how to record audio with two people, because even in my other videos where I have a second person, they don't always sound too nice. That's something I gotta work on, eh? So this was a throwaway, I suppose, and that kind of sucks. So yeah, let real Zarie explain it to you a little bit better. So here's the thing about starting anything new. You have to accept that sometimes things just don't work out. For example, this podcast, as much as I would have liked everything to work out and the quality of the podcast to be great, it just didn't happen that way. And that's okay. It's something that we have to it's something that we sort of have to contend with as creators, that sometimes things just don't work out. But that doesn't mean we have to quit. So if you ever want to try this, don't ever be discouraged at what happened to me. Because you know what? I can get up tomorrow, hit up Jason and make another episode. And you can too. Nothing's do or die. So would I recommend you start a podcast? Both yes and no. So it depends. do you like the format of a podcast, or would you rather talk about it in a YouTube video? Would you rather talk about it in something else? Or would you just rather write about it? Or how would you prefer to express your feelings? A podcast is a nice way to get informal conversation, a nice way to get your thing out there. Also, it's nice for the listener because they don't have to devote themselves to reading. They can listen to it while they drive or so, which is a great thing about podcasts. It's very malleable, and it can fit into your daily life very easily. But creating a podcast is actually really difficult, and whoever goes out and does it, I applaud you. Congratulations. Don't feel bad if you struggle or you can't do it, because there's no shame in failing, and just trying should be applauded. So what is next for this podcast? So I would like to make another 4 episodes, make it a 5-part series, 2-month break in between, do it at 2-month break in between, and do it at the major points of movie releases. So with the Oscar nominations coming forward, with the Oscar results for Best Picture, etc. See what that brings. Going to the mid-year season of movies, because that's always great, especially for anime. The summer animes are usually really well done, so we'll see what happens there. I would like to see close to the end of the year, the holiday season, what it looks like there. And yeah, so just I'm gonna spread it out a little bit more. Let's see how it goes from there. In terms of the name for the podcast, we still don't have one. We don't know if we're going to upload it yet. Because this episode is a throwaway, I'm more than happy saying scrap it, and then we start over from the first one. We have a name, we do it a lot better, and we do it that way instead of struggling the way we are now. Another option is I create a Patreon and I upload the full unedited thing on Patreon, or just edit it a little bit and then upload it that way. I don't really know how to use Patreon firstly, and what I would put on a Patreon. So if you have any suggestions on things you'd like to see as Patreon content, let me know and I might think of making one. And beyond that, I want to say thank you for watching this far into the video. I know it's a bit different to everything else I've created so far, but I'm actually very excited for the new format, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. I will catch you in the next video. It shouldn't take too long to come out, because I am working on it right now. And to be notified when that happens, subscribe and ring the bell. I also do announce my things on Instagram, sometimes on Twitter. Don't count on that. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.